Ever since the pandemic hit us a couple of years ago, the importance of remote work and working from home has come to the forefront. Web3 and Metaverse will only take things one step forward with virtual offices. However, while much of it is still in the future, devices built on Intel vPro can help you future-proof yourself. During the pandemic, IT teams all over the world had to go the extra mile to ensure that the user's PC is safe. IT professionals work tirelessly like superheroes. The vPro platform empowers these IT heroes to remotely manage PCs with greater ease, even if the users are outside the firewall. Intel vPro, built for business. Hi, welcome to Future Proofing. I'm your host Ekalavya Bhattacharya, and this show is presented by Intel vPro, built for business. In this show, we speak about Metaverse, Web3, blockchain technology, and how it's going to have an impact on different industries. And if you followed our podcast over the past few weeks, you would have realized that we've spoken about impact of Web3 in media, gaming, sports, and a lot more. Today's episode is a little different. Today we're going to take a step back and we're going to look at business models and how they have evolved from Web 1 to Web 2 and what the future has in store for us, right? Joining me today is one of my favorites in this digital ecosystem, Aditya Swamy. He's worked across FMCG, media, e-commerce, and now at Google. So join us for this fascinating conversation after this quick Intel vPro break.
Hello. It's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On the Filter Coffee Podcast, Karthik talks to Unni Radhakrishnan, CEO of Digitas India. Unni talks about what it's like being part of an idealistic organization and his leadership skills. The Simplified hosts talk about globalization with a bunch of bad jokes. On Capgemini's Techipedia series, Sheila Aditya talks to Kalaivani Ganesh Kumar, Vice President North America BU Capgemini. They discuss consumer patterns post-COVID. On Probation se Promotion Tak, Abhinav ponders whether one can make their own career bulletproof. And on The Longest Constitution, Priya throws light on the Ambanis filing an injunction against the book The Polyester Prince. Before I leave, I just want to remind you all that we have some amazing merchandise for you guys. Please go to our website, click on the shop tab, and check out the collection of t-shirts. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Don't forget to rate us on any other platforms you're listening to us. And remember, you can also check us out on YouTube. We're also doing a small listener survey which helps us understand who you all are, our listeners. And we'd really appreciate it if you could spare a few minutes to fill it out. It helps us build better shows for you. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Boat Lifestyle, Small Case, Capgemini, and Intel vPro. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Hi, welcome back. In our studio today, we have one of my favorite people, Aditya Swamy. Addy was my boss, and apart from that, he's worked in FMCG, through Coke, he was in MTV, he was heading MTV for a while, he was heading marketing at Flipkart, and is now doing some really fantastic work at Google. Welcome, Addy.
Hey, Eka, good to see you here and good to see you in this new avatar. So wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Addy. Addy, I was talking to a producer before this and he was asking me, our show is called Future Proofing. Which one of your guests do you think is the most future-proof, right? And I was like, it has to be Addy, and he was like, why? And I was like, he told me this long back and I was referring to you. I was like, you have to enjoy what you're doing, and especially if you like work has to be fun. And you told me after getting out of B school, you could have joined a FMCG company, which might be a little boring like Unilever, but you chose Coke because Coke was music, events. Then you were at MTV leading the content and music revolution, and that's when web was really evolving. Then you rode the e-commerce wave when everything in India was e-commerce, and now you're doing some really fabulous work at Google, Addy. You're the epitome of future-proofing.
Eka, it's all about being at the right place at the right time. And you talked about Coke at the beginning. I think Coke was the only one who'd have me. But it's also about, I really believe in this, that if you really want something really badly, it'll happen. And when I was going through B school, we had to do these summer projects. And I thought the Coke summer project would be super exciting and I'd get to sit in this air-conditioned office and drink chilled Coca-Cola all day. But reality struck. I got the summer project, but the project was to roam the streets of Andheri in a truck. Selling Coke store to store. But I think somewhere that counted for something because that converted into a job itself. So it wasn't as glamorous as I imagined it to be, but once I got in, it was a fun ride.
Adi, in today's episode, we're going to do a little different from what I usually do in our show. We're going to talk about how businesses have evolved, right? And you've also worked across multiple companies, multiple different business models. And today, let's take a nostalgia trip, right? And I want to start off by saying, what was your first memory of the internet or the web? Right, you were probably in school, college, late 90s.
No, it's funny that you asked this because it goes back to the Coke experience. So after being running these trucks for a while in various markets, I moved to do marketing in Gurgaon. Gurgaon was truly a village then. For those of you who know Gurgaon.
This is when, late 90s?
This was in 98.
Okay.
And there was one building in Gurgaon, which was NK Towers, which had the Coca-Cola office. And then there was Nestle. And there was nothing else in Gurgaon. Literally, to have a pizza, you have to drive to Vasant Vihar, right? So there was nothing. So I landed up there and our CEO said, who's the newbie on the floor? So it was me, my hand went up and he said, come here. There's this thing called the internet. I give you 30 days, go figure out what it is and come back and tell me. This is the CEO of our company, right? And literally nobody knew. So I said, okay, let's start. So that was really my first exposure to figuring out what the internet was. I figured out I need to come to Bombay. So that's the first good step. And as I came and roamed the streets of Bombay, I figured out two very interesting gentlemen in those days who still are in many ways defining the internet in India. I met Neeraj Roy, who had just started Hangama then in Raghuvanshi Mills. And I met Alok Kejriwal, who was running
He was also one of my ex-bosses.
Contest to win. Yeah. So whatever I learned about the internet was through their eyes. Our first big internet experience for the brand was, there was this game. It was like a conveyor belt.
Okay.
And it had a whole bunch of Sprite bottles. And you had a crate and you had to catch the bottles in the crate. And I went and showed my CEO. I said, this is the internet. He said, how will this happen? Where will it play? Where is the conveyor belt? I said, there is no, it's on the internet. He said, what is the internet? I said, it's on the internet. So it was a lot of challenges to make him understand and make the people, all of us understand. But once we got going, we did a whole bunch of games with Contest to Win. It was the most exciting brand extension to do. And then along with Neeraj and his team, we built Coca-Cola's first website. It was called My Enjoy Zone. It was like, it had games, it had music, it had movies. Think about what comes with our eyes closed today was maybe the very first step into the internet that I took and that I enabled Coke to take as well.
That's very nice, Adi. So at that time, what was digital for Coke? Was it a function of marketing? How was it looked at? Or were you allowed to experiment with whatever you wanted? Or
it was very much about marketing. It was very much sitting in marketing. It was not a business. It was not a business channel.
Okay.
But it was very much a consumer activation channel.
Okay.
So we used it to run a bunch of contests, to share with people what they would love, build proposition of brand beyond just the product. And I think having a platform suddenly opened up many things. I remember in those days, when I was in MTV, I always thought about this. We did a big show with a 20-city concert with B4U.
Okay.
These are Bollywood, indie pop concerts. And suddenly now we had our own platform to put all of that content on. So we just do those shows, we'd shoot it. And apart from the channel where they'd run it, we put all the content on our website. And suddenly we started getting more page views and page visits and those metrics that we used to talk about in those days. So it gave us a platform where we wanted to do stuff. And that became a good extension to everything that we do. Coke would sponsor a lot of cricket tournaments. Literally for every tournament, we do, tickets as prizes. And early days we used to partner with Make My Trip. And on all the tickets and all the contests were actually available on the website. So
I remember a fun fact about you, Adi. I think you'd gone to Zimbabwe and were lucky to give Sachin Tendulkar a Man of the Match award back then.
Yeah, it was, well, again, I say right place at the right time. They needed someone who basically was what was really expendable and who could go and spend time in Zimbabwe. So I raised my hand, I went. We sponsored the Tri-Series cricket there. And, Zimbabwe, the stadium, it's not like I was seeing an IPL match yesterday. It's very different. Those hills, everyone's sitting, having a beer. And once the game got going, my job was to make sure all the branding is fine and all of that. So it all got going. And I said, okay, my work's done. I sat on the hill and I started drinking beer in the afternoon. And the next thing I know, like the game's over and Sachin's played a great knock. He's a man of the match. And they're like, we need somebody from the sponsor to come and give out the prize. And they were like, there's only one person from the sponsor, this kid. But hey, so the Andy Flower, who's an ex-cricketer, gave me his jacket because I didn't even have a jacket. I was sitting on the hill. I wore his jacket, went up and gave Sachin an award. So that's something that's a very special
You
moment.
still have the jacket, Adi?
I don't know the jacket, but I have the picture.
We'll talk a little about collectibles and memorabilia in a while. But again, we spoke about Coke. So probably this was around Web 1.0. Websites had existed. Contests were happening. And like we probably said, right, in business models at that time, digital would primarily be a function of marketing. And then Web 2 happened, right? Social media started
You taught me social media, Eka. I must tell everyone this, that when I was at MTV, we were primarily a television network. We were part of Viacom, which was a broadcast network. And within MTV, we had an Orkut community. And literally there used to be this guy who used to run the community who would come and tell us, hey, there's this community, I have 10,000 people. Literally next week it'd be like, I have 20,000. The 30, they were like, what is going on here? So Orkut was the early days. And then Eka, you came on.
Yes.
And you used to educate a lot of us really about the social. And it used to be really interesting. We know television really is like governed by the ratings that come out. And every week we'd get these TV show ratings that would come out centrally. And you, Eka, would come and keep telling me how many likes, how many followers, how many fans. So we almost had this parallel universe actually running at those days.
I'll add a little story to this. I still remember in one of our previous episodes we were discussing that, right? Like how appointment viewing has pretty much died now, right? And it's probably seen only in sports. And I still remember, this is just like a decade back, how television ratings were appointment viewing, and we used to have a little fight saying that no, you can't put the episode up. And now you look at it, right, like everything is just available to binge on the go, right? And that evolution has been crazy, right?
I think the realization actually happened when YouTube really started picking up. I think a lot of the content that you were building was like, hey, we are building for multiple screens. So let's start thinking about the content differently, how we shoot it differently, the engagement of that content, the shoulder content. I think all of that really opened up. And I think when we started seeing TV ratings and YouTube views side by side, I think it started showing how big the scale of this was. And that's when we started seriously investing in our digital business. I think you built a lot of interesting content, platforms, engagement. And I think then I would actually go out and say we are not a broadcast business. MTV lives across screens, you know.
I think that's when we termed we used to use the term screenagers, right?
Exactly.
Like young people who would like just consume content across multiple screens.
Yeah, I think that was a fundamental shift, right? Because the way we started thinking about our business, not our television business, we're in the content business.
So, Adi, a little, we'll talk a little more about MTV, but, business models probably, and we're talking about Web 2, 2010s, right? At that time, probably as the business head, was marketing still a function? You would still look at digital as a function of marketing? And since our episode, we're talking about business models, right? Like, what are some business models which started sprouting up, which probably had digital at its core back then, right?
Well, I think it was the early days of VAS.
Okay.
And VAS seemed to be picking up steam with all the telcos. So there was clearly a business opportunity there around content which you could get users to pay for. Then there was a separate advertising business that was building through all of the content that you put on digital platforms. And then there was the influencer business as celebrities and talents started getting created on that platform. I think those were the three areas at MTV we're tapping into. But I always felt, and we're jumping a little fast forward to what I do now, the joy of being able to provide something to the user which is of significant value and then trade on that value is really what the internet enables, right? So personalization.
What do you mean by that, Adi?
Like today, the middleman is out.
Okay.
Right? Everybody wants to provide a personal service to the end user directly.
You're defining Web3, okay, when you're saying the middleman is out, right?
So I think
So
I think the dialogue between businesses and users is becoming so much more direct, so much more real, so much more personal, that it allows businesses to charge premiums for that service that they deliver. So today, let me give you an example, right? If I had to go in my school days, today if I want to read something, if I want to learn something, today what do I need to? I need to go to a library, right? I need to go to a library, I need a librarian, find a book, read it. Today if I want to search, I just go to search. Right? Where's the middleman? There's nothing, right? So I think that is changing the way brands, people interact with services.
That's very interesting.
To me, I think that's an exciting space to be in.
So tell us a little more about post MTV, right? Like at that time, I think e-commerce was really the hot and happening thing back then. Flipkart was in competition with Amazon. I was hearing this at another podcast which you done. Like you left a lot of the ego issues, and you were at the top of the world when it came to media entertainment. You wanted to step outside your comfort zone, and you joined Flipkart. And at that time, why I'm saying Flipkart at that time was a digital company, right? If you look at it, it's at the end of the day, digital was its core. Evolving from probably digital as marketing, digital as distribution of content, and probably, certain supplementary income to a company which probably was born in the internet days, right?
So Eka, it sounds all good in hindsight, but I went to Flipkart to do something very different and landed up doing something very different. So Flipkart wanted to set up what is Amazon Prime Video today. They want to set up a video service. That's why I think somebody from the content world made sense to go there. Okay. I took my offer in October of 2014. Okay. And I joined in Jan of 2015. Okay. And in those 3 months, and that's, I guess, the volatility of the startup world, the entire business model of Flipkart was under question. And hence, it said, forget everything else, focus on pure commerce. So when I joined, I said, hey, you know what? We're not building this video platform. We're just going to focus on commerce. So here's a guy who spent 10 years in media and entertainment to go and say, okay, let's do e-commerce. So I think it was like the wind was taken off from under my
But great learning experience. Now in hindsight,
I look back and think it made me truly understand what is a digital business. I think you talked about it earlier, right? So far, digital always seems ancillary. Yeah. Suddenly, digital was it was everything. It was powering the entire business. I remember we used to do these big billion day sales, which are I think early ones, second or third maybe. And we'd have real-time tracking on the number of SKUs that are selling by second. Okay. And that could never happen in a traditional business. Like, how would you know? But by real time in TV, we used to get viewership after one week.
After a week, like time ratings would come.
So we'd strike these, Redmi phone, Motorola phone deals, and we'd get like 100,000 phones, and you'd see the ticker. It's going 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 sold out.
But that's incredible scale, right?
So that was data analytics. We could merchandise the store in real time. We were able to take reviews and ratings and use that to think about what kind of SKUs to order. We were able to map out our delivery agents basis the data that was coming. So I really made me understand that internet business or digital business is actually a data business.
It probably prepped you for Google, right? Tell us a little more about what you do at Google right now, right? And based on how businesses have evolved. So we spoke a little about, the Coke journey, how it was marketing, Web 1, Web 2, social media, Orkut, Facebook. Like we used to run like not tom-tomming about ourselves, but there was a time when MTV had the most engaged pages in the world. You remember when Roadies won this award for the most social TV show in the world, and we saw that the Indian youth was moving screens.
I'm proud. I must jump in here. We had the longest running sponsorship deal in the history of Indian television. We had Hero Honda on Roadies for over 10 years. Yeah. And after the first few years, when the novelty of the concept it wasn't the novelty anymore, but it was the scale. I used to go and meet the marketing folks at Hero Honda, and they got it. They said, tell us what it's doing on social. Yeah. Like, is this allowing our brand to explode on Facebook? What's happening on YouTube? So I think the power of social media and the power of digital media was being seen by marketers, seen by brands. And I think we at MTV were able to use that.
I think they calculated, I think some brand came to us and said that you delivered us 3 billion interactions, and we were like, did we? But yeah, like that was the power of probably the Indian digital ecosystem, right? And probably this was still early days. How has it evolved over the last few years, right? And why I'm saying this is, Adi, you also pretty much are now running the entire app ecosystem in India, right? And
I don't run the app ecosystem. I run a player that's that's key part of the app ecosystem. I mean, look at it. At Google, our goal is to make the internet helpful for 1 billion Indians.
Okay.
Today, we got 600-700 million people already on the internet. That's only 50%. We're going to get another 500-600 million people onto the internet.
Okay.
This is going to be the largest free internet market in the world. So I think the opportunity...
What do you mean by free internet market?
Well, it's not controlled. It's not government controlled. It's not state controlled, right? It's still an open market.
Still unregulated, you're saying?
No, I mean, it's open market. Today, in many countries, you're regulated.
It's very regulated, exactly.
Like what pops up in a search would be regulated. And India is a free market. I think we have our own boundaries on what we allow on the platform and not. But I think largely a free internet market. In this market, what is becoming and some of the reasons on why it's becoming so big, low cost data, cheap phones, all of that. Today, the first thing that somebody comes onto the internet for is potentially social media and video.
Okay.
That's the gateway to the internet. But once you get in through that, what are you using to solve for your needs? To manage your finances, to study, to entertain, for your health? It's all through apps. India's got one of the most vibrant app ecosystems in the world.
How much is it worth, Adi?
See, app ecosystem, I would say today digital economy in India is contributing to 10% of the GDP.
Okay.
Right? It's a $250 billion GDP today. Digital economy in the next 4 to 5 years is going to be 25% of India's GDP. $1 trillion digital economy powered by apps is the
by 2030?
By 2025.
By 2025?
$1 trillion digital economy in India, right? We might have slowed down a bit because of COVID, but I think we've caught up also very quickly. So I think fundamentally, if the gateway beyond the initial layers of social and video, if you think about the next step, is going to be people wanting to transform their lives through apps.
On that note, Adi, we'll just jump into the segment which I do on the show. It's called Eka's Commandments for Future Proofing. While there is so much that can be done with Web3 technologies already, we are still at a very nascent stage with regards to this. It is like having a young child prodigy around you, and you can only speculate about all the great things her future holds. The Web3 infrastructure has just about started to get developed, and there's still a long while before we get to see its maximum potential. However, while we speculate about the future of Web3, we do know of something that is already out here to future-proof us. The Intel vPro line of processors. Do you know that Intel vPro users can experience 41% faster office productivity during a video conference call? That means employees stay more productive while collaborating. Moreover, it also offers a better battery life performance, which means you can leave the cot behind and you don't have to constantly worry about charging your laptop. Ah, what a relief. Intel vPro, built for business. Welcome back, and in conversation with Adi, and we were just talking about how the web has evolved, and now pretty much we are in the age of the apps. Adi, do you remember the first app which you ever downloaded?
I just want to go back to the sentence where we left off in our last segment, saying apps can transform lives.
Sure.
I think that's very powerful, Eka. Today, if you think about it, the first app we might be using is entertainment service, but a lot of people are coming on to figuring out about health, how to educate their kids, how to manage their finances. So I think the ability for us to do that, for apps to be able to do that is phenomenal. The reason that India just crossed 100 unicorns last week is fantastic. If you talk to the VC community today, they're talking about India having 500 unicorns by the end of the decade. India will add more unicorns than any other country in the world. So the momentum of where startups is, India is going to be the epicenter. Every startup, I think, outside of SaaS will be app first.
Are you saying that we're slowly moving from a service economy to a product economy right now? When it comes to apps and...
Well, apps are offering services, but the door to enter these services is now an app rather than a physical store or a helpline that you call, right? So I think with a very vibrant app ecosystem, on one side with a huge number of users on the other side.
Okay.
When I say app ecosystem, developers, a lot of active developers in India, many users. The intersection of the two is where we are going to unlock a lot of value for everyone in the ecosystem. So today we offer, as Google Play, the role I do, we offer a surface where users can access a plethora of apps, and app developers can access users across 190 countries.
Okay.
So a game developer told me the other week that how could I have sitting in Bombay, he's got a studio, how could I have sitting in Bombay launch a game, somebody in Bolivia plays that game and suddenly I get money in my account?
Wow.
How is that even possible? And I think that's what technology is enabling. That's what technology is enabling. Okay. It's enabling the world to get more deeply connected. It's enabling businesses to thrive. And it's enabling users to find the service that best suits their need.
That's fantastic, Adi. And honestly, I think apps, first thing we wake up, we check an app. Last thing we go to sleep, we check in an app. We order for food from apps. Our finances are through fintech companies. Most of the unicorns are there. So many health companies. So I get that, right? Let's talk about super apps, right? Like that seems to be the flavor of the everyone's like with IPL, we saw this massive company, one of the Indian behemoths launch their super app, and there's talks about everyone launching super apps. I'll tell you where I'm coming from, right? The little which I've read about super apps and how they became really popular, and biggest example we will see everywhere is China, right? And then you'll look at what WeChat did, what Tencent did, and then you'll realize that they managed to do this because, again, like you mentioned, India is still open, right? And probably China was not that open, right? So it was slightly regulated. People were forced to use apps which were probably built in the country, right? India is a little different. Okay, so how do you think? What's your personal view? It's not the Google view, right? What's your personal view about super apps, right? Do you think they are here to stay?
I think a super app has to be built on a very strong foundation. What's the foundational service of the super app? Like think about Amazon. Okay. The foundational service is commerce. Yeah. Like on top of that, you give me video, you give me other services, I will love it.
But if there's no audio, video,
But I think if you don't have a strong foundational service, but you just want to pull together a bunch of services without having one core service that defines you. Like I will go to an app because it gives me something where it stands for. On top of that, give me other things that I need. Okay. But I think foundation has got to stand for something. Like I think it's like any business.
No, that's very interesting. Because again, in China, a lot of super apps which came, they were digital first, right? In India, if you're looking at a lot of companies which are now trying to get into the super app business, they're not digital first. I feel that they're trying to. And you know why I'm saying this, right? India was unregulated, right? When it came to if you look at WhatsApp, number one in our country, Facebook was probably number one social network in our country for a while. And again, it's Instagram. You look at LinkedIn. These are all international companies, right? And India also has fun fact, India has the highest amount of English-speaking people online, right? Which is also changing. A lot of if you look at vernacular content, if you look at regional content, they're all growing. But there's this thing in India where, probably people like international stuff. People like an international app, right? Like I used to see a lot of people would prefer an Amazon over a Flipkart. I don't know, maybe because of UI, UX, for weird reasons, right? How does this all figure out, right, in this whole super app business? In the user, as a user, what do you think?
I feel like, if you ask me personally, this is my personal view. I think super apps will be by genre. So I think of a super app for entertainment. Okay. Which gives me music, books, videos, shows, podcasts, everything. I think a super app for health.
So like what? Like in entertainment, like a YouTube?
Yeah, I think think about it. But YouTube is still a plethora of different services. Okay. It's open to the user. It's user curated. It's open to the creator. It's not curated.
Still UGC. Okay.
Yeah, but I think about if you create a super app. I think about health. I've been using this app, Healthify Me. I find it really nice. I think about it as if somebody give me good workouts, good nutrition, good diets.
Okay. Also videos for workouts.
Maybe songs that I should work out too. I think you suddenly make health the reason I come to the super app, and then all the aspects of health together.
That's interesting.
That could be an interesting thing I just find it hard to think about an app that stands for everything together.
Exactly, right? Or maybe like what you said is very interesting. Maybe in travel, probably Make My Trip is trying, right? Initially, it was just flight tickets, moved to hotels and buses, and probably content around travel.
You could meet like-minded people. There's a social interface on top of it. So I think those kind of things. But hey, you know what? The beauty of this is all of this is evolving, and everybody's trying out different models. So where will it land? What will work? Is I think very interesting to see where it will play out.
A question which might make you a little uncomfortable, right? Like, and I don't want an answer from Google over here. Web3, okay, it's about openness, it's about trust, it's about privacy, okay? How does all this tie in, right? Like most people and a lot of our listeners, and we've been speaking about this, Web3 is about an open, a decentral app ecosystem, right? How does that go hand in hand with... Do you think that's just utopian? Do you think it's just theory? That's not going to happen because probably otherwise a developer in Bombay will never get a paying subscriber from Bolivia, and it's happening only because this ecosystem has been built? Or do you think there is scope, right? And why I'm asking this is, success in super apps comes with monopolies. Very difficult for startups to actually scratch the surface. And you also, represent Google for Startups. So tell us a little more, right? Like, how does a startup now figure out whether I have to work in this app ecosystem? What's going to happen in the future with Web3?
I kind of think of it quite simplistically, Eka. The center of the universe is the user.
Okay.
And user trust comes at a high premium. And today everybody are worried about what's happening with their data. I worry about what's happening with my son's data on the internet.
Yeah.
What is he going to be exposed to? So I think more and more businesses have to state upfront on what they are doing to keep the user's trust. Before you walk into it's like when you go to a restaurant. Before you walk into the restaurant and start eating, you need to make sure that the food is going to be of a certain quality, you're going to be safe, and then you're going to start eating, right? So what drives that? Where is the restaurant located?
Yeah.
How do people talk about it? Reviews. Like when you walk in, is it looking neat and clean? How the staff turned out? So I think all of that impacts your perception about the restaurant. You build trust, you engage with the product, and then you like it. Word of mouth is the most powerful marketing tool, right? So and for example, we have started this service now across our apps. We'll have it live over the next few months. Like you have nutrition labels on food.
Yeah.
You'll have data labels on apps.
Privacy, right?
Saying, as you use this app, your data will be used for A, B, and C, and D. And if that's fine with you, go ahead. But if you don't, you can opt out.
Adi, do you think people care? Do you think people care about privacy or privacy? I feel, we had a fascinating conversation earlier where Varun mentioned that people will give up their privacy for convenience, right? And do you see that changing?
I don't agree.
Yeah?
I don't agree. I don't think privacy and convenience are a trade-off.
Okay.
Users want privacy and convenience. And why not?
Do people understand privacy?
So I tell you what, people are aware, very, very aware of privacy in terms of where is my data being used. People are not well enough aware of how to manage their data.
Okay.
So I think the as an industry, the path we need to create is, it's something users care about. Okay. They don't know what to do about it. And now we have to make it simple. We've got to make it accessible so that users can then actively make a difference based on their preference. Some users might say, hey, I don't mind all of my data being shared, and that's fine, but they should do it willingly and consciously. And some people might say, hey, I don't want to share all of my information. And the more likely there are people in that bucket. So I think just building this awareness around privacy, data is what we need to do as an industry.
In our country, if someone says, I'll give you 100 rupees, you give me all your data, and people might agree, right? Like, which is why I was like, we're such a diverse country, right? And I think a lot of people will be willing to make a handshake of giving their privacy just for, like what people might say, you can bribe. But I'm sure a 50% discount, you think a 50% discount is good enough for a person to access your history of purchases?
I don't think it should be. It should be monetized. There has to be a value delivered for it, and it's not I can buy your data. I fundamentally disagree with that premise and going down that route. I think if you can show the user the value you deliver to them by using their data and use it responsibly with their consent, that's the way to go.
I need some examples with some startups with this probable mindset, right, where they care, who you see have made a difference over the last few years. Startups coming from India, which are probably, a little more aware of global privacy. And again, why I'm asking this is, there is a monopoly which comes in, right, in a lot of apps. How does today a listener probably who's in college and hoping to create something, how will he compete with a super app, right?
Well, I don't think you start competing with a super app from the day you start, right? I think you basically start saying what is the proposition or what is the problem you want to solve.
Okay.
And you're going to start, everything's going to start small, but you've got to dream big. Okay. Is the problem large enough that will allow you significant headway and runway for you to grow your business?
But will these behemoths allow you? Because, see, the main, and a lot of people are saying this, right? Like you rightly said.
Look at it today, Eka, India has 100 unicorns. There are 100 companies that are valued over $1 billion, right? So if there is a land of opportunity for businesses
will
to
it
be
get
born,
affected? This is still pre-super apps, right?
So I don't think so. I think we have enough space. We have enough users.
Okay.
Actually, only half the Indian population is on the internet today. The other half is going to come up. India's strength is in our numbers.
Okay.
We're going to be a large volume market. And I think there is enough place for multiple players to operate. We will skim the market differently.
Okay.
There will be different services and different businesses that offer services, different segments of the market.
Okay.
So there will, in segments that are crowded, the best service provider will win. But there are so many, like I think agriculture, for example, is just ripe for tech innovation.
Yeah, agri-tech completely.
Agri-tech could be huge, right?
I personally believe, the bridge between Bharat and India, what a lot of people talk about, it can clearly be bridged by such companies, right?
So does India need one more OTT? Maybe not right now, but does India need 10, 15, 100 agri-tech companies? For sure. So I think it's about these segments and how businesses are trying to solve for uniquely India problems. So I think I see a lot of innovation. I see a lot of hunger with young founders. I see founders really addressing very fundamental challenges or problems that India is facing and thinking about how technology can solve for them. So I feel we have a lot of space, and that's why the ecosystem is so buoyant today.
That's great, Adi. We'll pivot the conversation a little bit now, right? Again, something which you told me earlier, right? Like when someone asks you what defines you, we see in India a lot of people say, I am Aditya Swamy and I'm a Googler, right? And a lot of people usually try to associate what they're doing in life with their work environments rather than you'll hardly meet a person who says, I'm a father, right? Or I'm a great husband, right? And honestly, I first want to obviously know how do you define yourself, but I have always defined you as music, right? And probably I want to know a little more about your music journey, and we'll talk a little more about stuff which you collect. But tell me, how do you define yourself, Adi?
I define myself as a kid who grew up in a small town of Chennai with very liberal parents, which framed my outlook to life as a free thinker, which enabled me to have a lot of fun but also be responsible, and keep throwing myself at the deep end of the situation, so that I believe to swim you have to drown. So I've drowned a lot, but I've managed to hold on to my oxygen mask and swim up, and every time I swim up I drown again. So that's been what I am. And I think music has been something that's gives me a lot of joy.
Helps you stay afloat?
It's what I really look forward to.
Okay.
It's in some ways, the weekends are what I look forward to. The drive to work is what I look forward to. My morning workout is what I look forward to, because all of it has a little bit of music in it. Now my wife runs a travel company, so a lot of our holidays now are around music events and concerts. So it's something that's become a part of everyday life, and it adds joy to me in whatever I do. So
you know why I'm asking you this, Adi, right? Like, okay, so a little bit, a lot of you might not know is Adi. I think when he was in college, he invited Parikrama for a festival or a death metal band called Shiva back then. And I wanted to ask you, Adi, if there was we are talking about the token economy now, right? So if there was an NFT back then, right, maybe the ticket of that festival, right, do you think it would have any collectible value to it, a memorabilia?
See, I mean, if you're a fan of anything, right, it could be music, could be art, could be anything, there is value in building those experiences into your life.
Okay.
Right? Today, for example, any concert I go to, I have the ritual of I buy myself and my son a t-shirt.
Okay.
So
That's
all
nice.
the t-shirts are oversized for him today, but I feel one day he'll have the same collection of rock
Very nice way of
and
putting
concert t-shirts that I
Yeah.
would. People collect fridge magnets.
Yeah.
That's a very common. People collect shot glasses.
Yeah.
So I think anything which enhances an experience that is close to your heart is of value.
What do you collect, Adi?
I collect. For the last 10 odd years, I've been quite excited by this whole world of turntables and vinyls.
Okay.
And going down that path has opened up so many doors. Like, I'll tell you a simple example, Eka. So now when I travel, whatever I do in whichever city I am in,
You pick
I will
up
visit 2 to 3 local record stores and buy at least a record each from every
Yeah.
place. It's suddenly given me 5-6 hours in every trip of
Just adds
something.
purpose to your travel
Yeah,
also.
suddenly like
Yeah.
that's an agenda. And it's not like I want to buy 20 records and
Yeah.
pack my bag with it. It's about going there, experiencing it, sitting there for a while, picking up 3 records and coming.
That's so
Now,
good,
all my friends, when they need to gift me something, it's so easy.
It's so easy.
Because everybody just comes and says, hey dude, we got your record. And I'm like delighted, right?
Unless you're like, I already have this.
That's okay. There's a lot of trading. There's a lot of trading as well, right?
yeah,
There
yeah.
are record communities and there are clubs. And you've just got to meet so many people with that like-minded interest. So I started collecting that. What started off as a fun hobby, my people around me call it now my addiction. But I feel like, hey, it's
So
it's
what do you
something
think
that
about
I...
digital collectibles?
So I must say, just to close that.
Sure.
So the other day we were having this game at home, and from friends were over, and they're like, "Hey, if your house was to collapse, what would you take and run out?" Somebody was like, "Oh, take my passport." Somebody like, "Take my phone." I was like, "I'll take my record collection." And my wife like, "There are 500 records. How are you going to take them all?" I think by the time the whole house will collapse. So
We'll figure out a way.
we all also get kind of bogged down with these material things. So that's the other thing. But hey, I'm not complaining.
Give some purpose.
Yeah, I'm
right?
not complaining. Yeah.
No, I'll tell you why, right? Like, honestly, what are your views on the token economy, firstly? And then I'll talk a little probably about music and why, I see there's a lot of sense in this whole space of collectibles tickets, right? Like when probably you and your son are going, and maybe a ticket is a great memory aspect to it. And there are 2 kinds of collectors, right? Like some people do it for their own love, and it gives them a lot of purpose, passion. And some people do it for, like what I say, the arbitrage people, right? Like they understand that there's value in a record right now, and probably 10 to 15 years later it'll make sense, right? If it's in mint condition or if it's a rare record, and probably maybe if you can get the provenance and of ownership and originality of it, I think there's a lot of I think there's personal value in that, right? Like, what are your views about this whole token economy which people are talking about?
I think we're sitting on something that's very interesting. I'll go back to where we started.
Sure.
In Coke merchandise, the Always Coca-Cola, the Santa Claus, they were tokens in like 50 years ago, right? I remember early days when we'd go to Atlanta, which was the head office, there'd be requests from family and friends, I want that Coca-Cola fridge, I want that, the Christmas thing, I want Santa Claus. So they were doing tokens then. It was just not being sold, or there was no monetizing value to it, but those were considered like big collectibles. And then you'd come back in India and you'd go down Colaba or Causeway and you see people selling those.
Yeah.
And they were selling at a decent price. So I think there is value in these. But now I think what's interesting is, like you said, there are 2 aspects to it. One is the fan collector who sees value in it, who wants to, maybe these are expensive, so you buy it. But the inherent, say, you justify to yourself, hey, it's also got some value. So if I ever need to, liquidate, then it's got value. But now there's interesting where it's becoming, we're trading for monetary value alone.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting to see where this is going to go. It's definitely a space.
You think it's just hype right now?
I mean, look at it. I'm buying records today.
Yeah.
They're like, sometimes, you buy a double set for 10,000 rupees. Where is it going to go? Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? Am I ever going to sell it? Today, I don't think I'll ever sell it. But I know a lot of people who've collected thousands of records who are like, I'm just done with this. I just want to get rid of it. Can somebody take it from me? So it's also about where in that life cycle you are. And I feel for sure this is going to open up a very interesting alternative economy and a very interesting earning stream for artists.
Okay.
today somebody like Banksy,
Yeah.
you can imagine an NFT of
Yeah.
Banksy would what it
I was
would
a
be
big
worth,
Banksy fan,
right?
yeah.
So I can remember what it'll do to art, what it'll do to music. It's going to be design. It's going to be very, very interesting to see where it goes.
Who's your favorite musician, Adi, if you were to?
It's difficult, but my favorite genre of music is reggae.
Okay.
I listen to a lot of reggae.
Okay. Off late, or you've always been a reggae fan?
I've always been. I just got deeper and deeper into it.
I know, because you've like, I've known you as a jazz guy, as a blues guy, even a Hindustani classical guy, right? You studied music, right?
So I'm a good tambram. So as I grew up, I learned Carnatic music, which I absolutely detested at that time, and I regret that a lot today.
Like most Tambram people, like, why are you forcing us to do this?
I was
right?
like, I wanted to listen to Guns N' Roses, and here I was singing these Carnatic songs. But I think somewhere that my mom always says, somewhere that went and landed somewhere inside your brain, and that's where I think in early days this interest and love for music started. But I started reggae as any. I started listening to the Wailers, to Peter Tosh, to stuff like that. But I think I've just got deeper and deeper into it. And now I'm discovering not just the classics, but also the reggae masters of today. And in less than a month, I'm going to be seeing one of them very shortly in Seattle live. So I'm looking forward to that.
So you know why I'm asking this, right? Like, imagine, and people are talking about crowdfunding, right? Like, people are talking about musicians who are realizing, and now we're living in a world where it's easier to produce, right? It's easier to distribute content. So imagine in reggae, you find probably an Indian, right, who wants to make it big in this space. Do you think there is scope for a platform where you can probably invest, since you now have a good ear, you can probably invest in talent, and that talent probably is in form of a token, can either be free passes for life, or it can be 0.1% of earnings of that person for life. Do you think somewhere over here Web3 can be used in music just to enable more musicians?
See, I go back to my MTV days, and a lot of artists who are not, say, if you're literally at the top of the pyramid, then you get fame and fortune.
But that was just Bollywood back then in MTV.
So I'm just saying, whatever, in any business, right? And let's say music for this example, right at the top of the pyramid, that 5% say, they have fame and fortune. Then there's a big center which have a lot of fame but no fortune.
Yeah.
They're very good, great talent, lot of fame, and right at the bottom is no fame, no fortune, right? So, so that middle bucket is really where I think you could use all of this to open that up. Because I felt in those days especially, and maybe even now, maybe much less now, but a lot of musicians couldn't financially afford to be full-time musicians.
Okay.
Imagine if you want to be the best football player in the world, but you played football only for 1 hour in a day. Like, how can you be the best football player in the world? You need to dedicate yourself to the sport. So I think what this will allow is it will create enough income and new revenue streams for artists to concentrate on their trade and to become better at what they do. And that will allow this entire creative community to truly explode and do much more. I think MTV then was all about giving a voice to the unknowns. Yeah. And I think we're proud, both of us together can say we
especially
a platform
with indies,
for lots of young musicians and artists. And I think this offers a wonderful platform and opportunity to think about what the gig economy unlocked then. This is maybe the digital economy unlocking for the creative community.
We have a whole episode on gig economy and Web3. Adi, tell me so much about music. Tell me your top go-to music apps on your phone.
Oh, I'm a Spotify buff. So I'm all about Spotify. I think the playlists are just amazing. See, the thing is, I listen to a lot of music, but my whole thing is to listen to music I haven't heard before.
Okay.
So typically if you go and you meet a bunch of people, everyone's like, hey, if you want to sing along to the song. To me, if I'm listening to the same song again, it's a waste of time.
That's what I was going to ask you, right? Like, we spoke about this. A lot of people, a lot of music listeners and music lovers, they reach this form of comfort zone, right? They're like, only rock from the 80s, 90s, and everything today which I listen is trash. Like, you guys don't know what real music is, right? And even I feel everyone defines music in their own way. You're saying you love listening to new music?
So we have this group of 7 or 8 friends. These are all my school friends. The one thing that kind of truly bonds us together, respect, everyone's all over the world, is this hunger to devour new music. And our WhatsApp group has only it's a music group. I mean, I think it's the most well curated music WhatsApp experience, and that's my go-to play. Literally, like through the week, people are putting up updates. So anytime I want to listen to something, I don't even go to Spotify. I open that chat, flick a link on.
I think curation,
and then it goes into its own world. So I recently been listening to this band called Pigeons Play Ping Pong.
Okay. Wow.
It's incredible. I'm a big Grateful Dead fan. Grew up a lot on Grateful Dead, and these are jam bands.
Okay.
These bands will play a 7-night concert, and every day they'll play a 4-night concert. They won't repeat a single song.
Wow.
Imagine seeing why people tell me you're going to see the same band for 7 days in a row. I'm like, yeah, there's not a single song that's repeated. And even if they do, it won't sound like the same song they played on day one. It's a jam band.
Wow.
They're just playing a jam set, and it's incredible some of the music they're creating. So I've been listening. I listen to a lot of electronic music. There's Frank Moody, which I've discovered recently, which I'm a big fan of. There's so much Frank Moody stuff out there. Frank Moody is so cool. And The Gladiators is a new reggae find that I'm quite into.
I see for a lot of our listeners also, you can just find out Addy on Insta, and he posts a lot of really cool
only
he posts a lot of only cool music, and that's how even I sample a lot of music. I see what you post, and I'm sure I'll check out those Pigeon guys today.
I think it's also like, with so many social platforms in our life, you really are thinking about different personality types on different platforms.
I think that's where word of mouth is also rooted, right? Like what you spoke about, if we go to a restaurant, and we try to do a research whether we will get nice food over there, right? I think music and a lot of stuff right now is, recommendation from people who probably are in the same frequency as you, right? Rather than trusting just AI to recommend, or how does it work?
I think it's a good combination. I think Spotify is incredible. I've discovered so much new music because of the AI. And I think curation, why not Apple Music, Spotify, any other service? It's the curation. The playlists are curated just perfectly for you. Even though I have such varied choice of my listening, somehow it's able to connect the dots and give me something that's...
I strongly believe that people will eventually start paying for curation, because there's so much content, even when it comes to OTT platforms, that I will tell someone, me, these are my likes, please suggest my weekend binge list for me, right?
I think it's beyond music, right? Everybody today wants a personalized service. I think in the early, we talked about evolution of marketing. I almost think about it as before it was spray and pray. Shoot out one message to everybody and hope it sticks.
Hope it lands, right?
Now it's like sniper fire. I know what Eka needs to do, I know what Adi needs to do, serve them their
specific communication.
In my earlier role at Google, I used to run what was like, how do we build advertising, the best kind of advertising in a digital world. So I had this nice analogy which said, we are a digital hamburger of advertising. So I said, in the center is great people and great ideas. That's the meat. That will never change. Without great people, great ideas, there's nothing. But now you've got 2 buns. You've got data and you've got analytics.
Okay.
Now that you have these buns and actually data and automation, with these 2 buns, imagine what you can do. Now that's a really juicy digital burger to bite into. So you can visualize that as we're talking about this.
Adi, on that note, in every episode we talk about and how stuff is going to evolve over the next 5-10 years, right? Especially in the web. What do you think are the jobs which are going to go obsolete, right? Which people should definitely upskill themselves. And what do you think are the fields and spaces which are going to really thrive in the space of technology, the app ecosystem, advertising in general? What do you think?
I think there's going to be a huge premium on design.
Okay.
And I think that's going to be, we think about it as a world that is a technology-oriented world, but technology and design are so deeply connected that I think there's going to be a lot of value for design. So I think that's going to be a very important skill to build. I think just understanding and being able to visualize, play with data, analytics, I don't think anyone can afford to say, hey, I'm not a numbers person. I think we live in the age of data, and you don't have to really, you have to be able to understand that data, be able to make logical decisions based on that, because data is going to lead you in so many directions that you need to be able to play with it. I think you need to just, as a personality type, be very comfortable with volatility.
Okay.
I mean, I'll share a personal experience. In my Flipkart days, there used to be a time wherein downsizing was a very real threat or real risk.
You spoke about it, like suddenly overnight 16 billion valuation fell to 10 billion, right?
Yeah, I mean, and then what happens? When the business becomes half, you got to reduce. First thing you got to reduce is half the people. So you have to be comfortable with volatility. Business models will pivot. Companies will pivot. Okay. You need to be able to land on your toes and take a jump. So I think you need to build. We all need to build more inner strength, and that's where I think I've been doing yoga for a long time.
Yeah, I think it's all about balance, also, right? Like what
finding
you spoke
some
about,
way to just calm yourself down.
Okay.
You have to find your own thing. It could be having a drink in the evening. It could be doing yoga. It could be meditation. It could be a workout, whatever. But I think everyone having their own personal solution to take it down a few notches whenever you need to. I think that's going to be an important survival skill in the world.
That is such a fascinating conversation. I just want to end with the last question, right? 5 to 10 years down the line, what does the metaverse mean to you, and where is Aditya Swamy in this metaverse?
Still standing, I hope.
Not on a couch with a VR headset.
No, I mean, hey, it's going to be a mix of both, right? Like I told you yesterday, watching the IPL game in the stadium, I don't think any VR experience will replicate that. But however, will there be VR experience if I can't go to the stadium every day?
Yeah.
So, why not have the VR experience the days I can't go? So I think it's going to be truly hybrid.
Music festivals, would you like to walk around a music festival in volumetric VR, right?
Sure, I would love to.
I think that'll be great for time travel too. Like this was an idea, right? Where you record stuff today, and probably there's lack of data and technology right now, but maybe a festival
See, it's evolved, right? Before I used to listen to a lot of concerts on my iPod. Now then it became, hey, you know what, why listen? Let's watch the concert on YouTube. Yeah. Now the next step is let's experience the concert through a headset, right? So of course it's going to be exciting, but is it going to replace the real experience? No way. I think it's both going to exist in parallel. Like somebody told me, I think some good analogy. We keep saying, India's a mobile first market. All content is being consumed on the small screen. You will consume on the small screen when you don't have the ability to have a big screen in front of you.
Yeah, probably.
But if you could watch the match on a big screen, why would you watch it on the small screen, right?
Unless someone is already in your family taking the big screen. Right? Yeah, exactly.
So I think it will coexist.
Yeah.
And I think the opportunity for real experiences will be there. Maybe they'll be at a premium, which is a good thing. And then the opportunity to have the experience suddenly becomes much more because of technology. So truly technology changing lives is, I think, where we are sitting at and going to see some big steps there.
Thank you, Adi. It's been a great episode for us. And thank you for being such a great guest.
Always good talking to you. And so much of it was just, just so easy and flowing. So thanks, Eka. Good seeing you again.
So much fun. Thank you, guys. And that was such a fascinating episode of Future Proofing presented by Intel vPro, built for business. If you learned from this episode, if you really liked this episode, please like it, share it, comment. Don't forget to rate us. And we also have some good news. We've been running this NFT contest, so do participate in it. For more information, you can catch IVM Podcasts across all social networks at IVM Podcasts. You can catch me at Ekalavya on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and I'm at Ekalavya B on Twitter. See you on our next episode.